Why is there so much hate for Ryan Clark? I posted a video on Monday, I think it was, about him leaving ESPN. He wasn't fired from the situation that was announced on both sides. On his Twitter page, I believe it was, they were in negotiations for a new contract. And Ryan Clark didn't like the offer, so he didn't re-sign with them. He wasn't fired. And a lot of people want to just throw that in there. So I'm like, let's dive into this for a minute, right? Let's see if we can learn something. When I shot this video for Ryan Clark, this thing is blown up. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I'm at like 60,000 views or something like that. And for me, that's huge. So I appreciate that. But I got like 400 something comments. And a lot of those comments were people just hating on Ryan Clark for the weirdest reasons. And I've seen this before, most recently with the situation that happened with Cam Newton. Cam Newton was talking about Brock Purdy. He was a game manager. That whole situation that got blown up. And people just were coming after Cam Newton for giving his opinion. But the funny part was, because so many people really don't like Cam Newton or don't like his attitude or I guess how he goes about his business, a lot of the stuff that people were saying about, and these are people that are on air, on a panel, the morning shows, all of that kind of stuff, they were getting real personal with the stuff. It didn't have anything to do with what he said. Because his comment at the time, I believed it. Brock Purdy was a game manager, and that started a whole nother argument like game manager was a dig, and it's not. You know, they're trying to change the narrative and everything. But the point was, most of the peoples, there was one situation in particular, I think her name is Kim Martin on ESPN, where she took a dig at Cam Newton. But right before she said what she wanted to say, she took a dig at his clothes or...
Like, move past the outfit for a second.
She insulted what he was wearing or something like that. And immediately I know, like, that was personal. This has nothing to do with what he said, whether you agree with it or not. It's that it came from him. You can see people's like disdain when they talk about him, and they just didn't like him. I did another video about Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez was on Colin Cowherd, and he was talking about Jason Kelsey. And they just showed a play. Mark Sanchez, being a former NFL quarterback, was just walking Cowherd through what was going on. Jason was looking at the line, reading the defense, making his calls, things like that. Sanchez was just saying, you know, how smart Jason Kelsey was. And again, he was 100% on target. But people were coming at him because it was Mark Sanchez. For a lot of people, the only thing they remember about Mark Sanchez was the butt fumble. So because he had that one incident, or because you don't think he was a very good quarterback, or whatever your criticisms of Mark Sanchez are, that means that he can't have an opinion. Or because he wasn't a great player in the NFL, he can't be a good analyst. A lot of those opinions the viewers and the commenters had about Ryan Clark. And I was like, where is this coming from? Because I never heard of people hating on him like that. Only when he left the network. I liked him. I thought he was good. I didn't agree with all of his takes. But there's not many analysts on ESPN or FS1 or any of these shows where I agree with everything that they say. With Ryan Clark, I did not, and I do not, agree with a lot of his takes. You know, about Brock Purdy, about Derrick Henry, LeBron James. I don't have to agree with that to think he's a good analyst. And me, as a former player, when I say analyst, I'm looking at somebody that's breaking down the game on Monday, X's and O's, defensive schemes, blitzes. He's breaking down the game of football. Everything else to me is just extra. What I want to see from analysts is, are they breaking down the game? That's all that matters to me. If I don't like what he says, I don't have to watch it. I have the choice to engage or consume what he's putting out, or I can keep it moving. And there's a lot of people that I like. A lot of times I listen to everything that Ryan Clark says. Other times I'm like, I'm not beefing him tonight. Marcellus Wiley, Acho, Shady McCoy. There's a lot of people on ESPN and on these networks now that I really like, especially being a Philadelphia running back. You know I like Shady, but some of the stuff Shady says, I'm like, not so much. It's always my choice to engage with it or turn it off. So I choose the other. I'm not going to get mad because somebody spotted their opinion. Ryan Clark doesn't hold back. He'll speak his mind. Yes, he does get into racial conversations, and I think that's where a lot of people get uncomfortable with him or just plain and simple don't like it. But what people got to remember, if there is a racial component to it, as we see it as black athletes and things of that nature, then it's his option, it's his opinion, and he can put it out there. And if you as a viewer don't like it, you ain't got to like it. Because I can not like Ryan Clark's takes, and I can still think he's a good analyst. Both of those things can be mutually true. In today's social media era, it almost comes across like if your opinions or your take doesn't align with my opinions, then you're trash immediately. There's no discussion, no context. There's no, well, let me hear a little bit more of what he's talking about, or let me figure out why, or did he have a previous conversation? Nobody wants to do any homework. If they hear something that they don't like, immediately they go 0 to 100. He's trash. He's garbage. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's not the case. People do the same thing with Orlovsky. I've heard people do it with Stephen A. Smith. A lot of other people. You saw the whole situation with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless.
You make it seem like I was a bum. I'm in the effing Hall of Fame.
Okay,
I got
so
3
what?
Super Bowls.
So what?
So what?
He's way better than you were.
I'm better than
Way
you.
better.
Skip, what does that got to see what you do?
Skip Bayless was railing about Tom Brady, and Shannon Sharp was finally like, why are you talking to me like I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm in the Hall of Fame? Skip Bailey lost his shit. But it's amazing how many people nowadays, especially in this social media era, the reason why they don't like a particular person is because of a particular take or an opinion that person has, so everything else just gets obliterated. The whole aspect of having a conversation, having a discussion is totally gone. It's all or nothing. It's the same way with a lot of fans, how they react to different teams and different fans from other teams. To me, it's hilarious because I played in the 90s. I played in an era where we actively tried to avoid the papers. You didn't deal with the papers until you were in the off season. You rarely had this type of interaction with papers. And I've said this many times before, back when I played, if somebody in the paper wrote something bad about you, they usually had to come see you in the locker room sometime during the week. So you had to be face to face. You couldn't just rely on somebody else's recording and then put some stuff on Twitter and then that's your story. You had to be in that locker room. You had to have that little mini tape recorder in somebody's face at somebody's locker, and you had to look them in the eye. And there were a lot of situations where somebody may have written something that players didn't like or coaches didn't like, and when that player or that coach saw that reporter in the locker room, they either came for him in the locker room, or when I say came for him, not physically, but they either addressed it in the locker room or they pulled that dude to the side and say, listen, why you write that? Like, they had a conversation.
Make it move. Make it move, big man.
And at least back then, the reporters, whether you liked them or not, had to have the guts to see you face to face and eye to eye. And you don't have that no more. Too many keyboard warriors want to say whatever they want to say. In a lot of situations, most of them are wrong. You look at that whole crazy situation with Cheryl Swoops and Caitlin Clark. Cheryl Swoops was dead wrong. She had a good point, but because she was lazy, throwing out arbitrary numbers, it made her look like she was petty, looked like she was trying to throw shade at Caitlin Clark, and it just took the situation and the conversation to a place where it shouldn't have gone. Her point was correct. She didn't think that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese were going to jump into the WNBA and just start dominating people. That's a good point. I tend to agree. What she didn't do was take 30 seconds to look at her phone, look up some stats, and give some credible information about Caitlin Clark and her fourth year and how many shots she takes a game. Those are easy stats she could have looked up. So how I take it, being a former player, I said, no, she wasn't trying to throw shade. She was just damn lazy. She got what she got. She caught the backlash, rightfully so. It's too easy to get the information and vet it, and it's too easy to do that. Even the last video I did about Ryan Clark, I made the comment about him leaving I Am Athlete and how that whole thing went down with Brandon Marshall. Ryan Clark wasn't on I Am Athlete. He was on a couple of episodes, but he wasn't a constant host. But my logic was, with the whole situation with Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor joining with Ryan Clark and him being on the show for 4 or 5 episodes, I felt comfortable saying he did have a part in that whole breakup and the way things happened. You got to get it right. I'm no different than anybody else. Even in some of my comments, oh, you're crazy. He should have got fired. I don't know how many times in the comments I've written, he didn't get fired. They just didn't reach a deal on the contract. So I'm not making it up. The point of this conversation is just, it's amazing to me in this era of social media, how we are cutting out the opportunity to just have a discussion, whether you agree with me or not. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's either all or nothing. And that ain't the way to be. You'll never get anywhere like that. But thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe. Click that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you guys in the next play.